So hey guys, thanks for joining me for another video. This is the Random Watch Dude channel, where you get some random dude like this who just likes to ramble on about watches and talk about his watch addiction. And today I'm doing a part 2. This is a SWOT analysis part 2. I did one on Tudor last week where I talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats that are faced by these watch brands over the coming 3, 4, 5 years. Today it's the turn of Omega. Okay, so strengths on Omega. Strengths on Omega. Well, I've got 3 strengths for Omega, and none of these are going to surprise you. And the first one, of course, is brand perception. Omega have a fantastic, I think they've got a fantastic brand perception out there in the marketplace. You know, if you're even non-watch enthusiasts, there are 2 brands that a non-watch enthusiast will know, or 2 luxury brands, shall we say. One is Rolex, of course, and the other one is Omega. You can guarantee that even people that aren't remotely interested in watches will have heard of Omega. They'll know Omega. Why is that? Well, they're associated with quality. They've got a very long history, and it doesn't hurt them one little bit to be associated with James Bond. Really doesn't hurt them one little bit, does it? And I think that's been a fantastic mainstay, I guess, of the perception that people like me have had of the Omega brand over the last few years, is that association with James Bond. I mean, James Bond can only be considered as one of the coolest dudes on the planet, and for Omega to have their brand and their watches on his wrist in the movies, you can't go wrong. Fantastic strength. Strength number 2 is their movements. They make very, very good movements. Now, Omega went pretty much in-house, I'm going to say around 2012, when they bought out the 8400 movement, and they've been fully in-house since then. But prior to that, they'd obviously picked up the patent for the coaxial escapement, which is a massive boon for them. And prior to that, they just made very, very good solid watches which were based on the ETA 2824 movements, which were owned by them anyway. So yeah, movements, guys, they make really, really good solid movements. They're very reliable. I don't hear bad things about Omega's movements, not the old ones or the new ones. I always hear, well, no news is good news when it comes to movements, isn't it? And with Omega, I don't hear bad news about them. So that's strength number 2. And strength number 3 is quite a funny one in this strange, crazy world we live in, where getting luxury watches is damn sight harder than it should be. Strength number 3 for Omega is that they're actually easily available. I walked into an AD on the weekend, and I was, if I wanted to, if I was so inclined, I could have bought pretty much every watch that's in their catalogue. I could have bought the new white dialed Speedmaster. I could have bought the new first Omega in space Speedmaster. The new Seamaster No Date was in. The No Time to Die, the Bond 60th anniversary, all of the Speedmasters, the Planet Oceans. They were all there available to buy. I could have bought whatever I liked, and honestly, actually, that was a really good experience. And thank you very much to Partridge Jewellers for enabling me to have that experience on Saturday. I really enjoyed it, and it was very nice to walk into an authorised dealer and pretty much see the whole catalogue and be able to buy the whole catalogue if you so desired. So that's strength number 3. So let's move on to the weakness. Now that I've got 3 weaknesses here for Omega. Weakness number 1, the Swatch Group. They are owned by the Swatch Group. I'm just going to move this lever out of the way because it's kind of waving around in my peripheral vision and it's getting on my nerves a little bit, if I'm honest with you. And I've got another one here that's tickling the back of my neck, which, you know, there are times when I don't mind being tickled on the back of the neck, but it's not when I'm making a video. Anyway, I digress. I shall carry on. What was it? Oh, the Swatch Group. The Swatch Group. So, Swatch. Okay, where do we start with Swatch? I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, other than to say they are doing their very best to completely shag the reputation of Omega right now. They're doing the best job they possibly can to shag the brand, and I'm going to leave it at that, guys, because I think most of you know what I mean. Weakness number 2 is the price. Now, Omega used to be really quite nicely priced. They were expensive. They kind of held the terrain that I would say Tudor are in right now, which is if you have a bit of money, if you've got a little bit of disposable income, you might find 10 years ago, you might have found that an Amiga was quite attainable, especially when you could walk into the authorised dealer and get a 30% discount. And I did that on more than one occasion, actually probably up until COVID, actually. COVID killed everything in that respect. But you used to be able to walk in and get a 30% discount, and even the retail price for an Amiga wasn't too bad. It was attainable. Now, just over the last 3 or 4 years, Amiga have gone a little bit bonkers with their price increases. And it's not necessarily the increases, it's more the strategy that every time they release a new model, they jack the retail price up. So they would say it's not so much the increases. And I've had an authorised dealer say this to me, they haven't put through many increases, and when they do, it's only 3%. I agree with that, I accept that, but every time they release a new model, and you can take the latest no-date Seamaster as an example of that, they've jacked the price up 9% higher than the date version of that model, which actually has a much better bracelet, and a bracelet which surely costs them a lot more money to make as well. So yeah, I think price for Amiga is a significant weakness for them right now. They've kind of moved out of that real nice Goldilocks territory. Tudor have taken that over. And third, guys, the third weakness that I've got is some of their recent releases I think have been timed badly and are just bad designs. They're just bad designs, guys. You know, there's one word that I can use to sum up the design choices of Amiga right now, and that word is chaotic. Chaotic. I think that their design choices in the last, let's say, 2 or 3 years, and particularly right now, I think it's chaos. I think what they're doing is they seem to be building watches that have just got everything in them. They've just got the best of everything Amiga do, and they seem to be wanting to put the best of everything they do all into one watch, and that doesn't work. That very rarely works. You know, sometimes less is more, and I think they've gone down this really chaotic design route at the moment, and I'm really looking forward to somebody else coming in and sorting that out, because it's just chaos. So that's the only word I can come up with for it. So that's their third weakness. So let's move on to opportunities, guys. Opportunities, or as a guy from Scotland that I used to work with used to call it, an opportunity. Opportunity. So an opportunity, I won't say that word again, I promise, for Amiga is for slimmer case design. So Amiga have gone down a route of large domed crystals, sapphire crystals, very pretty, nice distortion around the edges, but they've also, of course, that thickens it by another millimetre, and they've also gone down the path of the exposed sapphire casebacks. And of course, in order to house the sapphire glass on the back, you've got to put in quite a thick housing ring for that, much thicker than a solid caseback, to house the sapphire crystal, which obviously increases the thickness of the back of the watch as well. So slim case designs are pretty much absent now from Amiga's catalogue. And let's look at watches, for example, like the Rolex Submariner, which is competing with the Seamaster. It's significantly thinner. Let's take a look at even the Tudor Blancpain 41, which isn't a thin watch on its own, but it's still thinner than the current iteration of the Seamaster. The Speedmaster's not too bad, but I think the Speedmaster could be shaved down a little bit too. I think that could be a thinner watch, and that would be a much more comfortable watch to wear. So on the whole, guys, opportunity for Amiga is to slim down their watches. Another opportunity is to come up with faithful reproductions of old classics. Faithful reproductions of old classics, not unfaithful reproductions of old classics, not rehashes, not pastiches, not parodies, but faithful reproductions of their old models. They're trying to do it. We know they're trying to do it, but they're not doing it very well. So I think there's an opportunity for somebody to come in and really sort that design team out and bring out some faithful reproductions of classic watches, and they would kill it. They would absolutely kill it. And the third opportunity for Amiga is that I feel there's an opportunity for them to nudge Tudor back down the pecking order. I think they've lost, they certainly haven't lost volume, okay? So we all know that Amiga will always sell a massive volume of watches. Get that. They'll probably always sell more watches than Tudor. Understood. But when it comes to perception and people's view of the brand, because brand perception is what takes you out through the next 5 to 10 years, isn't it? So you can sell watches well on your history for the next 5 years, but what's going to be still selling watches for you in 10 years' time is the work that you do right now to improve the perception of the brand. And I think Omega have an opportunity to retake the middle ground, because I think that right now Tudor are really chewing on their heels, and if they're not careful, they're going to get overtaken in a few years' time. So I think the opportunity for Omega is to retake that middle ground with obviously some of the changes that they need to make. And finally, I want to talk about threats. So I've got 3 threats here. Threat number 1, guys, I'm going to keep it as short as I can. Threat number 1 is that they're going to price themselves out of the market. Their prices are going a little bit loopy right now. Every time they release a new model, they jack the price up 10%. Hey, guys, we're watching you. We're watching you. And I ain't paying $15,000 for a Speedmaster. I'm sorry. That's not happening. So threat number 2 is restricted availability. Now, I think this is cessating right now. Is that a word, cessating? I think there's a cessation in the restriction of availability for some of their models. There was a time when I couldn't get hold of a white Speedmaster to try on. I couldn't get hold of the No Time to Die when it came out, and I wanted to have a look at it. I couldn't see the Bond 60th anniversary for about a year and a half after it came out. All the watches that I like are obviously the same watches that everybody else likes, and for a while there you just couldn't get hold of them. When they released the Ultra Deep, actually, as a point of note, when they released the Ultra Deep, I don't think that watch was actually available for about a year after they announced it. So Omega have kind of gone through this phase of announcing watches that suddenly, you know, you can't get for a year anyway. The ADs were telling me they didn't see one for a year, an Ultra Deep. Well, I walked into the AD on Saturday, and they had a really nice selection of Ultra Deeps, and one of them, the Mariana Trench one, wow, I love that watch, guys. I absolutely loved it. I'll put a wrist shot up here of it. I thoroughly enjoyed wearing that watch. It's way too thick as an everyday wear, way too thick, but what a bloody lovely watch that was. I really enjoyed wearing that. That is a direct competitor to a Deep Sea. Anyway, I'm digressing. So the threat for Omega is that the models that people want aren't available. I do think that's changing now. I could have bought the white dialed Speedmaster on Saturday. I could have bought the first Omega in space. They had two available because people haven't bought them. I could have bought the new Seamaster, which surprised me. Could have bought that. Could have walked out with it. Threat number 3, guys, to finish. Threat number 3 is that Omega become a parody of themselves, and they will become a parody of themselves if they continue to make really poor design decisions, which they have been over the last year or two. That they become a parody of themselves. In other words, their faithful reproductions become very unfaithful. That Swatch continue to release crappy plastic chintzy versions of beautiful watches, which downgrades the perception of the actual watch. I don't think Blancpain, or however you wish to pronounce that word, or that brand, I don't think their image has improved one little bit from having a plastic piece of crap with their brand on it, named after them. If anything, I think it's probably damaged it. Actually, I was on Blancpain's website the other day having a look at the new 50 Fathoms, and they actually, on their own website, they're advertising the Swatch watches, the Blancpain Swatch watches on their own website, and they call themselves Haute Horology. I mean, just think about that. There's a Haute Horology brand out there that people, you guys, keep telling me how amazing they are and how everything's handmade and special and brilliant and wonderful. And they're advertising a plastic pastiche of their own watches on their website. I was astounded. And that tells me how out of touch Swatch are, because of course Swatch own the Blancpain brand. That tells me how in control Swatch are and how they are making really bad decisions. That they've thought it was okay to associate their plastic crap with a Haute Horology brand like Blancpain. Anyway, that was my final threat, guys. So that's my SWOT analysis of Omega. Now, Let me know what you think. Some of these opinions you may share with me, and some you may wholeheartedly, vehemently disagree with, and that's okay. I'm just a watch dude, I'm just a watch addict, having a bit of fun. Don't take it all too seriously, guys. I'd love to know what you think in the comments. If you've got any other strengths, weaknesses, opportunities or threats that you think Omega might face over the next 3, 4, 5 years, I'd be very pleased to see your comments in the comment section. I'd love to see you subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And even if you don't want to subscribe, and even if you have subscribed, give me a thumbs up, guys, because it really does help the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Cheers.